Good evening. I'd like to call the December 12th meeting of the Oregon City Planning Commission to order. And looks like everybody's here that's here, and our two colleagues, Damon and Charles, are absent, and we missed them. So we have 5 items on our Planning Commission agenda, and the first item of the agenda is the Planning Commission interviews. And Ms. Turway, take it away, please.
All right, thank you very much. So the plan is to pause the recording. We'll get out our digital recorder for the interviews. We have 2 interviews tonight. We have scheduled about 15 minutes each per interview. And when we do the interviews, there's a couple of rules. We have a set of questions set before you. If you could please take notes on the answers. I can get you any pens or pencils that you need as well. And then if you ask one applicant an additional question, then you have to ask that same question to the second applicant, unless it's very specific to the answer that they provided. And then after our interviews, we can talk about if we would like to do deliberations and a recommendation tonight, or if each commissioner would like to email me your recommendation. Don't deliberate among each other. And then we can appoint at the first hearing in January. So either way, it's up to the Planning Commission to decide. Are there any questions on this process?
Just about the process, it seems to be a departure from some of the interviews that we've given in the past. Is there any rationale? I mean, it being at the setting with the dais and everything like that?
It makes it a little bit easier for the recording when you do it in the middle of a meeting when you have another agenda item on it. It's a great question. Some of the interviews in the past have been sort of in the back room. This way, if there's any members of the public present, which we kind of anticipated hopefully that there would be since we have the Legacy Project, they can participate, or it could be more of a bit of an inclusive process. So this is the way this year that the Historic Review Board has done this, since we can stay in this public setting and have an opportunity for the public to participate if they want.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah. And then also there's some Planning Commissioner interview information in front of you, as well as our city code. All right, if you're ready, we can pause the recording.
Okay, I was just going to ask them, how would you like to proceed? Does anybody particularly
Were we going to do roll calls? That way you had me come back up here?
No, we called to order, so you're part of the commission.
We just talked about who was absent.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just for clarification, I'm not sure, there's 2 individuals here, if they thought the same thing as the other 2 folks, that there was a continuation or the meeting with a developer.
There is not a continuation tonight. So tonight we'll have the interviews, and then we'll have a presentation and a feedback session for the Lamp Falls Legacy Project. And the confusion comes from an initial request from an applicant to continue an annexation to tonight. They submitted written documentation into the record back in November. And then at that November hearing, they testified that they actually wanted to continue it until January 9th. So it's more specifically, it's the annexation request for the Sears property up in Park Place, north of Holcomb, by the school. And so that continuation was moved to January 9th. But it was originally
The reason I wanted to clear that, because I wasn't quite sure if you were here, like a couple were before you for that purpose.
Yeah, I think they were, and that's why I asked them. I said, are you guys here for something on the agenda tonight? Because I said, there are things, but it's not that thing.
Yes, okay.
The Legacy Project. It should
Well,
be
that's
a packed
exciting. I
house.
told them to stay for that.
Yes.
Okay.
I was talking it up.
All right, are you ready for me to pause, and then we'll get
Sure, yeah.
our applicants settled? All right.
Just trying to get the right words and the choice of words and the syntax
All right,
Are you
we're
ready?
back.
and the this and the that.
All right, we are back officially on the record, and do we want to make a motion, Laura, or just how do we want?
Yeah, so it's a recommendation.
Okay.
The appointment goes to the mayor
Okay.
for appointment, but he will take into account your recommendation.
All right.
You gonna listen to the tape?
I don't think you're back up yet.
Right. I was wondering.
So I'll make a motion to reappoint Tom Guile to the planning commission for 4 more years.
As soon as he goes away there. But
As soon as he's on the other side of
you can sit in the audience. Okay, is there a second to the recommendation?
Second.
Okay.
All right, Commissioner Mahoney,
Aye.
Commissioner Henkin,
Aye.
Commissioner Espy,
Aye.
Vice Chair McGriff.
Aye. That's
All right.
that's a lot of mouthful out there. I can just say.
Motion passes. And
Do you want us to say that?
No, you don't think we
you want to advise on the other, on for the second
You want me
position?
we need a motion.
Do you want me to sum that up?
Yeah, if you would.
Okay. Julie, we really appreciate your coming in and interviewing for this, but we would like to strongly recommend to you that you get a little more involved in the community. We're not saying that this is the second toughest job or the second toughest commission that there is, but there's a steep learning curve, and I think you've got a lot of chutzpah that you applied for this position. But we'd like to recommend you do a little more seasoning.
Just get a few more activities under your belt with.
I would start by going to your neighborhood association. Park Place is not one of those neighborhoods where nothing is going on. There is something going on. And I know that you work all day and that you might not want to go to a 7 o'clock meeting if you get home from work, but it is really a good place to get grounded. It's a place where you meet your own neighbors and you can ask more point blank questions about stuff that's going on. You can decide whether you want to get on a subcommittee, maybe you decide you don't want to get on a subcommittee, but I think neighborhood activity, as I said earlier, is really sort of the cornerstone of community involvement here in Oregon City. And you
start there and use it as a stepping stone.
absolutely.
I'd just like to tell you, you can find the Park Place neighborhood on the city website.
Okay.
And they just had a meeting a few weeks ago, but they have meetings about 4 times a year. But there's all kinds of steering committees, and they're always looking for people in Park Place to be on the steering committee. They are desperate for people.
I can summarize this for
Yes,
the record.
please, thank you.
Since it's in the audience,
Yes.
which is
That's why I said no, Tom.
www.orcity.org, and you can find all of your neighborhood association contact information and meeting dates. Or call us at 503-722-3789.
Woo, that was good.
Okay.
All right.
So we're going to recommend to the mayor that we go back out and re-advertise.
So I recommend that we withhold the appointment of Julie Reed until we find until we keep the position open until we find a qualified applicant.
Oh, I wouldn't have said that either.
Is there a second? Or do you
Second.
wanna- Okay.
Okay, on the motion?
Commissioner Mahoney?
Aye.
Commissioner Henkin?
Aye.
Commissioner Espy?
Aye.
Commissioner McGriff?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. We have not received any public comments at this time.
Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to make any public comments for items that are not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none.
You know, I joined this.
And you want our notes,
When I joined this, I was,
Laura?
Yes, please.
I was a young man when I joined the
Would you like the application? Okay.
Thank you. So next on the agenda, we have the Willamette Falls Legacy Project Riverwalk Design Concepts. We have Kelly Reed.
Where are your comments? Are they here?
They're in there.
Oh, sorry.
She wants to.
Applications too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't see any reason why we. By the way, before you get started on that, did Charles's summary
Clean it
get
up.
sent out to all the planning commission members?
I did not get it.
Okay.
No.
We probably could you do that?
I will.
That would be great.
Thank you.
I have the second draft. He sent it to me and we talked about it and then we added some stuff to talk to the commission about.
Is this the one you guys gave to the commission on
Yes,
Wednesday?
when you were there.
Yeah.
How do we get rid of that?
Okay.
Computer.
So is this gonna be on our screen?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Not on this laptop.
Use clean filter.
Okay, I'd actually really like to watch it from because it's a lot easier to see.
It's just a work session.
You can move
there and then move back for Q&A.
Nay, yeah.
Is this a work session or is there?
Oh, I love that. It says file
work
not
session.
found.
Huh?
It's a work session.
Oh, I thought it was a regular meeting.
Yeah.
Hey. All right.
Is it on their screens?
It's not on mine yet.
So
You got the
Yeah,
presentation?
yeah,
You got presentation? There you go.
okay.
Good?
Those Lake Oswego guys know how to push and pull the buttons.
No, I know it. I know
He's an Oregon City guy.
Oh, is
Me.
I live here. I live here. I
Oh,
only
that's
work
right.
there.
Thank you, Kelly. Would you like to do
There's
a
a
quick
good
introduction?
reason for that.
Sure. Thank
right.
you, Commissioner McGriff. I'm Kelly Reed, planner with Oregon City, and I'm here with Alex Perov with Metro. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thanks for having us. We're here to give a quick update on where we are with the Willamette Falls Riverwalk project. As Kelly said, my name is Alex Perov, and I'm the project manager for the Riverwalk with Metro.
So we have tonight for you basically a community conversation is what we're calling these presentations that we're giving out to many different groups and organizations within Oregon City and even outside of Oregon City. So you're seeing this. We have we started these a few weeks ago, and we've met with a few organizations so far. One of them was the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, the Clackamas, North Clackamas Chamber of Commerce. I believe the McLaughlin neighborhood had one scheduled for last week, and it got canceled.
Because of the weather. Although
Because
I
of the
think we
weather.
could have slid our way in there, but I was worried about Christina trying to come in.
And I think you rescheduled for this Thursday, but it looks like the weather might
Happen again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
be a problem again.
I know. So what are we going to do about the the mobility
Well,
thing?
it's still scheduled.
Oh, that meeting, right?
It's actually,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Don, your-
alternative mobility and it's a.
Don, your
mobility app. I mean,
snowshoes. It's alternative
yeah,
mobility.
It seems.
It's slippery. We will use our alternative mobility to get here. Okay.
Public transit will work.
What an
I have a
uncanny
sled.
group.
I have a
Cross-
sled.
Cross-country skis will work too.
Oh, I've got those too. Okay, all right. I'm in then.
Bike it.
So we've met with a few groups already, and we have a lot of meetings scheduled this month and next month to really take this presentation around to the community and get, deliver the update to people, make sure they're updated on progress, but also to gather input and feedback from them as part of our overall community engagement plan for the Riverwalk. So in addition to the community conversations, we have some focus groups that we've kind of put together and are meeting with this week. We had some over the summer as well, and those are focused around programming and operations for the Riverwalk, and then another one on river access and activities. So we have boaters and fishermen and kayakers that are coming to that meeting, so we can really get into the weeds about the river access part of it. We've met with downtown, and actually tomorrow we have a city commission work session. If you happen to be around and want to come to that, we'll have this information, but also a little bit more. By that time we'll have results from the community event that we did last month. So those actually are coming tomorrow, and they'll be shared with the City Commission by our design team.
And
So
we don't have a sneak preview of that tonight?
we
I have a couple numbers I can share.
Okay,
yeah,
good,
yeah.
good.
I just want to mention, since we've had some of these conversations already and we've received some input, a couple highlights. One from the PRAC, Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. They some of the main input that we heard there was really they wanted us to simplify the experience of viewing Willamette Falls from that final overlook at the Hawley Powerhouse Foundation. They really didn't want us to design a building there. Want to keep it open air and really let the I think how they worded it was let the falls speak. Don't really add a lot of built environment out there, let people be in the elements. And then they also supported the kayak access and a little gathering space along the waterfront down kind of closer to downtown. And they were looking at the public yard area, wanted that to be considered for community events like the First City celebration and other events that we have downtown, and kind of thinking about how we might be able to use that space for those events in the future.
So what did they mean by kayak access?
I think in general
An
they
alcove.
yeah it's like a little kayak launch along the shoreline so that you can put in your boat. And then I know we haven't met with McLaughlin yet, but we did receive a letter from the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association that focused on the carpentry shop. It's a building out there that was built in 1903, and the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association mentioned support for reusing in some way that building, and then also the number 3 paper machine building, which is located kind of between the old 3rd and 4th streets. The flour mill, a lot of you probably know this already, but there's an old flour mill foundation kind of underneath that building, 19th century, and there's kind of a balance that I think the McLaughlin neighborhood pointed out of, if you're going to try and expose some of that flour mill foundation, that means you have to demolish some of the number 3 paper machine building, and that is a potentially eligible building. So we received those comments, and we will talk to the neighborhood association more about those 2 items specifically, along with the rest of the design options. In addition to all these focus groups and community conversations, we are also planning another community check-in sometime in January or February, where we will post more information online and maybe have another survey. We do have a survey that's currently still up on our website that's related to the presentation that you'll see today and the community event from November 17th. So that's up, and then we will ask new questions in January or February, so look out for that. And then we will have a preferred Riverwalk concept in March, and we're planning another community event in March to kind of unveil that and gather.
So there's one, or will there be just one preferred, or there'll be a couple of options? Because I heard there were at least 3.
There will be one. We had the alternatives in November, and we'll have one preferred concept. That being said, there might be some places within the preferred concept where you'll have different options.
Okay.
So, we don't think we can really get every decision made by March, but we hope to have as much of a full concept as we can.
And it will also identify a phase 1 project in the preferred plan to move forward with.
Yeah. We also I wanted to just give you a heads up about future land use applications that will come to you for this Riverwalk project. So you may remember that you approved the master plan. It was CP 1402 back in 2014. That was really the framework plan to guide the future development. It was a lot of work, wasn't it?
No, I'm just saying it was so long ago. 2014. Oh my God.
So that's still the guiding document for everything that we're doing, and we expect that the full Riverwalk preferred concept that we'll get in March, that we will birth in March, will be a document that's kind of similar to the vision document, that nice 11 by 17 booklet. We'll get something similar to that for the preferred Riverwalk concept, and then that'll be a document that's adopted by resolution at the City Commission. And what will come to you through the land use process will be the phase 1 schematic design. That's a detailed development plan that kind of comes underneath that framework plan. And so that'll be, it's a type 3 process as dictated by the the master plan approval in 2014, one of the conditions of approval said that any development proposed, any major development proposed through this master plan is a type 3. So it'll come to you as a detailed development plan, and any of the applicable conditions of approval will be addressed within that land use application. And as an example, one of the conditions of approval was to have a transportation demand management plan accompany any development application. So the Riverwalk will come to you with that, among many other things, and all of the overlay districts that apply, like floodplain, natural resource overlay, geologic hazard overlay. Those will all be included in that land use application. So there'll be a lot of more reading for you.
Can I ask a quick question before you get off of the master plan approval and the future land use application? So what you're saying is sort of the concept that you're recommending be adopted by resolution by the City Commission. Will there be any opportunity for us to make a comment to them about that outside of that meeting? Will we look at that and we could make and tell them that yes, we think it's really great, or I mean, I'm sure it's going to be great, but what would be is there a role for the Planning Commission in that?
Presently, no, because your role was approving the master plan and that this design is in keeping with the master plan. So you've sort of already done that. Is that appropriate to say?
Well, and I think, we're doing these community conversations, so the Planning Commission is, in addition to being kind of, you're going to approve, or you're going to review the land use applications, but you're also a stakeholder group. So
Right,
we're
we're a
coming
focus
to you for your comments. So your comments on, whenever we come to you with meetings like this, those get recorded and shared with the design team, and so that's how we're taking your input on the preferred
I'm just
concept.
wondering if after we have that, if we feel that we can make some sort of a formal suggestion or recommendation that I would like to see us be able to do that. I mean, we've been so intricately involved in this that we're not trying to hold up the process or add anything to the process, but if we can add our voice in support, I would like to be able to recommend to staff and my fellow commissioners that we be able to do that, because I think it's really important for us to show solidarity in this whole process.
I agree with that. It seems to me that is really important.
Let me check with our legal counsel. The only reason why I say that is because you are the ultimate decision maker for this decision, not them.
Well, I know, but
So let me make sure there's
we
no
want to support the
conflicts
commission
or-
and say, hey,
Sure.
we've looked at this schematic design and we think it's really great, and we're just letting you know that we think it's great. That's all I'm talking about.
Just a head nod kind
Yes.
of a thing.
If-
Yeah.
And
If we're the ultimate decision maker on this thing, when is it that we make a decision, and under what form?
You'll get a detailed development plan and maybe a master plan amendment. And that will be coming to you about what time?
It would be in June. Yeah.
Would that include the Riverwalk?
And I just want to also add that we have a partners group in the Willamette Falls Legacy Project, and it's 2 elected officials and 1 administrator from each of the 4 partners, and so they're the decision making body for the overall legacy project, and they will be kind of blessing the preferred concept and the schematic design before it comes to you for land use approval. So that's how that part works.
Just keep in mind that we want to continue to be very supportive of this, and we may have comments, but we want to again be supportive of the process and let the City Commission know that we are looking at it as well, and we think like I said, that everything's great. So if we could carve out maybe a few minutes when we get this and say, hey, yes, we want the City Commission to know by consensus we think this is really great. Move on.
We can do that.
Okay.
I'll follow up with Carrie on that.
Question, I know that all this, we have to go through all these processes.
Hand me those papers back.
There you go. We have to go through all these processes, and I keep getting asked the same question. Well, when do you think they'll start? And I said, well, sometime in my lifetime. But they're asking, is it going to be 5 years? Maybe we might see something, or 10 years. In your best just a guesstimate, when do you think anything will start?
We will answer that question with the presentation. It's
Yes.
included, so Alex, I think will.
Okay, because
You
that's
might
what
have to wait
everybody
till
keeps
the end.
asking. I'm like,
And if we
Yeah.
got started sooner, they'd say, why isn't there enough public process for this?
Yep,
Yeah, I don't want
There's a
that.
balance.
Two more.
And so one more thing before I dive into the PowerPoint is I mentioned the transportation demand management plan is one of the things that will be submitted along with the land use application. And that plan is really, you can think of it as a multimodal access plan that addresses transportation and parking for the Riverwalk. And that's going to be developed in upcoming months. We have Rick Williams as a consultant that's going to be working with us on that, and he completed the 2009 downtown parking study that was adopted by, I believe, the City Commission.
I'd like
And
somebody
so he's really familiar with Oregon City and with downtown, and he's going to work with us on that, and expect to see within that interim parking solutions and other tools that will manage access and parking to reduce the impact of traffic and parking, on downtown and McLaughlin and the surrounding areas. So
Thank you for saying that, because the McLaughlin neighborhood was very explicit with Jonathan Stone about the fact that the previous TDM that they did down there said, oh yeah, let's just use the McLaughlin neighborhood for parking and people can come down in the elevator, and we kind of took a little bit of an exception. They took exception to that.
isn't that why the elevator's there?
Exactly. No. We already have a lot of people who are parking in the neighborhood who are not the residents.
I thought for a long time that's what they were pushing, though, is for people to park up there because of this.
If they want to park in existing parking lots, that's super, but that's not what's happening, and that's off the topic.
I
So
see, okay, sorry.
One of the things that we've got to really be honest with ourselves about is the unintended consequences of this whole development.
thank you
And there
so
will
much
be.
for saying that.
There will be unintended consequence. And we as a planning commission and as a city have to address that. Now, we might not come up with the absolute best question or answer to it, but at least we got to be aware. Let's not get caught short on the fact that everything's coming up roses, because to some people it's not. There's going to be some conflict here. So we've got to address that, and if we can solve it, so be it. But at least be aware of it.
Okay, I'm going to dive right into this presentation. So many of you have, all of you have seen this before. 4 core values: public access, healthy habitat, historic and cultural interpretation, and economic redevelopment. And we always have to state these again and stress that they're all at the same level. One is not more important than the others, and that they are all critical to success in the Riverwalk and in any future development on site. And then, of course, the framework plan that was approved 2 years ago by this commission. We've been out in the community a whole lot this year. Starting in March, we held an open house down at the Abernathy Center. Over 800 people showed up, and we were out at the First City celebration in July, and we got over 600 comments from that interaction, and we talked to thousands of people that day. So in addition to all the meetings and community conversations I mentioned before, we've had these big events. Alex will talk to you about the November 17th event we just held, but really what came out of these 2 events that you see pictured here was the overall program of the Riverwalk and the key uses, which is on the next slide. But first, the Tribal Advisory Board is also a way that we are gaining input from our tribal partners. And there are 5 tribes that have historic and current ties to the falls. They harvest lamprey each summer, and the falls is a very significant, culturally significant place. And so we've formed with them a tribal advisory board that comes together and reviews Riverwalk plans. And so that's an ongoing process, and we expect that it will not keep pace with our timeline for Riverwalk design. And so we're looking at a longer timeline with this group, and that means that we might actually end up with some unknowns when we have a preferred concept, where there might be some kind of gray areas that then get later filled in once we kind of are able to come to an agreement or decisions with the tribal advisory board. So if we want to have any kind of space that's there for kind of tribal events or gathering or cultural, interpretation. We've talked about a lot of different ideas with the tribes, even, a lamprey research center, for example, or an interpretive center of some sort. So if that is going to happen on the site, we probably won't know by March. And so we might see some areas on the plans that are a little bit less defined so that we can define those with the tribes.
And how is that going, really?
We're going out to meet with the tribes at the reservations, and we're asking them to come
individually,
here.
or there's representatives of each of the tribes sitting on this tribal advisory council? Both. Okay.
And we haven't had full involvement from all 5 of the tribes at these meetings, but we communicate with them and send information, and so we're hoping to kind of get better and better. And we're forming a memorandum of understanding with the group to really define what it is we're trying to do and how we're going to do it, so that we're all kind of on the same page.
This might be drilling down too far, but protections of cultural artifacts, pictograms, petroglyphs, that kind of thing. I'm seeing stuff on social media that is sending me through the roof, pictures of the pictograms and that kind of stuff.
There's some in there. But
Yeah, and I'm hoping that we discourage the
randomness of all.
well,
Yes,
just
yeah,
the
there's-
public the
Yeah.
publication of all
Have you
that
ever
of all
seen
those
Yeah.
artifacts.
Well, it hasn't been from us, I hope,
Yeah.
right?
No, it hasn't been from you
okay.
guys, but it's been from people
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
Facebook and
Yeah.
chat and whatever
Okay.
next door and that kind of stuff. So,
Okay.
but if you see it, it'd be great to have somebody from the city saying, "Hey, maybe you might want to keep those to a minimum, or if not at all," because
Yeah.
every time
Yeah, we don't need access there.
I've
that's
already
for sure.
seen, the stuff that's been up on the Kanema Bluffs desecrated, and I just hate to see any more happen up
Mhm.
there.
Okay, thanks.
The only reason I asked you the question is that through another project I'm working on with the Willamette Falls Locks, we've had sort of the same issues involving the 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 tribes, and so I know that it can be a little less than harmonious because they don't all agree, and I'm hoping that nobody who's listening to this tape assumes that just because they're all tribes that they all agree. They do not. They each see, their situation and their access and influence that happens here. There's just different avenues of access and different avenues of their use of the site. And I guess one of the questions I had was, do all of the tribes that you've listed here, I know those are all the main ones that have been involved, do all of them catch lamprey? Because I know there were only a couple of specific tribes that really went in to do the lamprey harvest, and then they would bring them to the big giant I call the potluck that they have, everybody get together, and they would trade that food stuff with other people for, I have this from wherever I'm from, and you have this, and I want this. So,
As far as I know, all 5 of those tribes actually do have people that go out and harvest.
harvest.
lamprey.
Okay, that's good to know.
It's a potlatch, isn't it?
Well, it's a potlatch, it's
Yeah.
it's
Potlatch,
it's the
potluck.
public market of their
It's
of
called a
their
potlatch celebration
yes.
where they trade and
Yes.
eat.
come
Okay.
together and have fun and whatever. Yes.
All of the engagement to date has kind of led us to these 9 key uses. Falls viewing access, of course. Some of these seem pretty obvious, but we're going to state them to make sure they're out there. River access and activities, collective gathering and event spaces, habitat restoration and natural history interpretation, honoring of Native American presence in the past, present, and future. PGE dam operations, of course, there's a working dam. Paths, walkways, and biking trails. Historic reuse and cultural interpretation, and then spaces that are not programmed where you can kind of wander and contemplate and
Off track.
enjoy the experience. And of course, all of these will support economic redevelopment on the remainder of the property that's not
So.
part of the Riverwalk.
So are you seeing any potential tension between these 9 things that could cause, so, as Bob says, unintended consequences?
Oh, yeah, and there are going to be trade-offs, and so that's kind of why we're talking to you, for one. And then when we do the community check-in online, another survey in January, February, you might expect to see some, trade-off type questions. Is this Riverwalk? We want it to be everything for everyone, but we know it can't be everything for everyone, so we have to strike a balance. We have a great calendar that our design team has put together. So we start in January and go to December. We have all the key uses there.
It's very small, so Kelly will walk you through it because you can't comprehend everything that's up there.
Yeah, I can't even see what I'm looking at right.
It says 2030.
I can see some dots. Where do you
This
see
is
2030?
The river flow in 2015 is shown here, so you can see in the winter, heavy flows, and then the summer it's low. And then on top of that, we're layering fish species and their migration patterns and the seasons that we see different fish species out there. We've got wildlife as well, and then migratory birds. So we're kind of layering all of these things on this calendar, and then of course adding PGE dam operations. What are they doing out there with the at the dam at different times of the year? And just to show an example, this blue line across here in the middle, a light blue, that's falls viewing access. And these, the size of these lines are based on the responses that we got at the First City celebration of what season people want to go out there and view the falls. And really, these are all very similar numbers throughout the 4 seasons. So you can see everyone really, at all times of year, wants to be out there to look at the falls, which is interesting because in the summertime, there's not a whole lot of water out there. But we still, people still want to go out there and see what's going on.
The nice mist on a hot day.
Yeah. And another just message that this calendar sends to us is that there's a lot going on out there all the time, which is great.
Did you see this?
So that's a living document, and it will continue to be added to. And I'm going to pass it back to Alex for the rest of the presentation, and she'll get into the technical stuff and the design alternatives. But first, I just wanted, we want to make sure that we get input from the Planning Commission tonight. And so, of course, everyone can go on and take the survey that's on our website. But we thought that this would be a nice time if you all want to take this opportunity after Alex does her presentation, if we could just kind of go across and ask everyone to give us like their top 3 thoughts or comments, for example, so that we make sure we hear from all of you. So with that,
Before you move from the screen, the purpose of having all the species on here, is that supposedly the time of year that they're showing up, or that's just the whole
yes.
grouping of all of the ones that could be there at any given time?
No,
Correct.
it's associated with the calendar, so the time of year that they would be there.
And the reason you did that was to find out if people wanted to view and take pictures and...
Oh, no, that's just data that the scientists on the team have that they plugged into the calendar to show kind of what's happening on the site in, wintertime, for example.
really
We're
cool.
going to
Yeah,
see
it
these.
is. I think it's great.
Yeah.
The purpose of that, because you don't want to disturb certain, like, some of the birds laying eggs or something like that, or...
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also like, well, if I want to see this particular type of wildflower at this time in the month, oh, look, I could look at this calendar and kind of see that might
When
be
it's-
available to.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And so the lines you said represent, the thickness of the lines represent
the amount of public interest for that particular key use.
Is there gonna be a key somewhere, because I'm having hardest time reading those little round things.
Well,
Don't
the
know what
reason
those
why
were.
it's so small at the community event, it was like 70 by 70. It was absolutely huge. And we actually had to cut it in half to get it in a car to get it home because it was so large. And so we can provide you with a copy of it that might be more clear.
So interpretive panels along the trail?
No, this is just a working
At all?
diagram at this point.
Yeah, I
But
would love
in
to
the
have that.
future,
That'd
it
be
could
cool.
potentially be,
Would that be possible?
yeah.
Interpretive panels to have that?
We have them in Park Place all
No,
along.
they want to give us
Oak
some,
Boulevard.
give us a copy of this, not as interpretive panels, but as a.
No, but I mean, it's just as
Sure,
an, as
yeah,
an
no,
idea
I-
for the trail.
No, I agree.
No, it's a beautiful calendar, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
With all of these animals here represented, you sure this isn't where Noah docked?
Oh,
Yes.
Huh? That's good, huh? Was
They
that
got
good?
it.
Huh?
I don't see any mice or rats, and I got a lot of them in my building.
Are there any further questions? Should I move
Oh,
forward?
exactly.
Yeah. You know,
Okay.
there's so many.
Yeah, just one more.
Yes.
How many species of wildlife did you count down there?
I didn't count those. I don't know. I'll have to get
You
back
don't,
to
you know what type, you just don't know the amount, right?
Yeah.
Probably Jerry Herman was involved in that, I would imagine.
Right.
No,
Or
they had science.
We have
wildlife sciences
CH2M
and-
Hill and Stillwater Sciences on the team developing this information, and that segues nicely into this hydraulic modeling. CH2M is, so what you see up here on your screen is a model of a 2-year flood condition. The deeper the purple color means the deeper the water is. And where you see a higher concentration of dark arrows, that is indicating velocity or water speed. And you can see, so this is a 2-year flood condition.
Is that deep?
The purpose of this, or the intent, is that we will be plugging the design scenarios, the design options into this base model to get an understanding of what would happen if, say, for example, we removed the clarifier. How would that affect flooding elsewhere on the site? So this is a 2-year base flood model, and we'll also be running a 100-year flood event model as well.
Can you do that by computer? Make a computer model out of it?
Yeah, that is a 100% digital terrain model.
okay.
Yeah, flood model.
So the 2-year, are you referring to that the last couple of years? They just took the water flow? I mean, we've
Yeah,
had some
so
pretty
we've
heavy
been
waters.
we've been working with PGE to get their data, and a lot of their data is funneling into this design program.
Definitely nothing like the 96 flood.
No.
That about 10 years
And
ago.
I'll show you, well, it's kind of faint on the screen, but there is a blue diagonal line that kind of cuts through the site here, and that is the 96 flood line.
Oh, wow, okay.
And of those 22 acres, about half of the upland area
You mean
is
the blue-
potentially inundated.
The blue dotted line?
Yeah.
Oh,
there's
okay.
a blue dotted line. Yeah.
Yeah.
I point up on the screen, but you're looking at a different screen. So.
Well, most people remember there was no falls in that year.
Nope,
Uh-huh,
it was
yeah,
just this
yeah.
humongous water.
Bubble, yeah.
Are
To
you
clear-
keeping any kind of a digital record as to your findings as this thing is designed? Because as it's built, I think the public would be interested, how did this come about?
Sure, yeah. We will be, once we have more concrete ideas and answers to what the scenarios are and how they feed into these models, we will have that available to share with the public.
Because this is valuable history.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it is.
Yeah.
I actually got to see one of the houses that came from upriver go over the falls during the 96 flood. It was like slow-mo demolition, you know, as it came down, it's like crushing in on it. Yeah, exactly. Just crushing in on itself. It was like, whoa.
Okay. As part of more technical investigations, Stillwater Sciences has documented the existing habitat environments found on site. And the top diagram illustrates those 6 different habitat types that I'll go into in 1 second. But in addition to the habitat, the bottom image in the green wash, that is identifying the different areas of platform over the years, the site has built up with industry, and this is just a way to highlight where those platform areas are. So, for if example, a portion of platform is removed, how does that maybe interact with the existing habitat types, the different layers of industrial history, cultural history, and revealing that, how does that work? And so, again, these are just technical investigations at this point. But this potential habitat types, these are the 6 that we are working with on the project: riparian forest, upland forest, oak, woodland, and savanna, in-channel river, off-channel alcove, and riparian basalt. And these images give you kind of a typical scenario of what that habitat type would look like. More technical investigations include public access. As Kelly had mentioned, looking at a TDM plan as part of this project, but also we want to kind of acknowledge the different types of access onto the site, either by water or by land. How does pedestrian connections occur? How do vehicular connections occur? The water trail, if the locks aren't opened in the future, is there a good basis for providing a potential portage route around the falls? So looking at a lot of different ways, commercial access, everything really at this point is still on the table. The bottom image is looking at key buildings for reuse. It's a small graphic, so I'll just kind of walk you through it a little bit. The red boxes in that diagram illustrate 5 buildings for key buildings to retain or remain, as well as, I guess there's 4 buildings, and then the one that you can't see is the Woolen Mill Foundation. Everything else in the orange is considered a secondary potential element for kind of an artifact worth retaining as well. The design team is still in the process of inventorying the site. As you can imagine, it's very complex, and there is a lot of building space to kind of uncover and reveal. And so this, again, is a working document. But what you don't see up here separately, we are working with MIG. They are doing a cultural landscape report for the site, and currently there is a draft out, and it's being reviewed by the 5 tribes before we make it public information. We want to make sure that we have the wording correctly. We aren't saying something that we shouldn't be saying. We just want to get that vetted before it becomes public knowledge.
What's the light blue line here? Is that also the flood
That
line
is
still?
this line up here.
Well, there's one there and on the bottom.
And it's the same line consistent throughout all of
Of the
the
flood
drawings.
area.
The 96 flood line, yeah.
Okay, while you've got the 5 tribes reviewing it, what about the State Historic Preservation Office?
That's next.
Other
Yeah,
the advisory committee?
That will be that will be next. We're expecting to hopefully receive comment and feedback from the tribes in January, so that process will happen next, yeah.
So I guess one of my questions is that it seems like this report is a bit delayed in my estimation, and so why is it taking so long to do this when I thought that they'd started earlier and way before we even started the process they were starting to do this? Because it seems to me that some of the information in there and then the information that's available from the public could be informing some of these some of the maps, particularly when it comes to reuse.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Lori has basically created this. It's like literally a chaptered book of information that she has gone through so many different sources and held interviews, and she went through this very laborious process, and I think a lot of that is why it took so long to kind of compile this information. There will be an academic review of this report as well, and so there's just kind of a lot of checking and fact checking before it goes to the next phase.
And she had begun her research before we, the design team, even started
Right, yeah,
doing
I
anything.
remember that, yeah.
So from day one, when they were hired and came to Oregon City on day one, Lori came and presented her research to them and has been meeting with them ever since. So the design team has been fully informed of all of the cultural landscape work that's been happening. It's just that it's not a finished final document yet.
You know, we talk a lot about economic development in this community, and it seems to me that the more you can link the Riverwalk and the improvements to economic development, the stronger this project's going to be, because people from all over the world are going to come here in search of history, because there's some real history buffs out there, and they're going to, and with that, they're going to bring money, and they're going to spend it in this community. So the stronger our emphasis on history can be, I think the better off we're going to be in this whole project. And because it is a public project with the public funds going into it, I think we have a real a strong position here to emphasize that. You know, I don't think the private sector would have that kind of interest as the public does. We've almost got a responsibility and obligation to do it.
And another portion of the project that I just want to share quickly is that we will be developing an interpretive framework plan to help support this information. It will be working with Lori Matthews and Mayor Reed, who they're going to basically take the information from this cultural landscape report and help build a roadmap or a framework for how we can interpret these different stories, cultural, historic, tribal, like all of the different stories. How can we showcase that respectfully on the site? And that will be another portion of the project that will focus specifically on.
When we had that meeting up in CC, Carlotta sat at my table with us, and she wasn't impressed. I thought the Riverwalk should come off and come in front of my store on Main Street before it goes back down the river.
I think you need to recuse yourself on that.
That's a building for the Coolidge plan. That's historical.
Yeah.
If I may just append what you said, again, yes, the history and economic development to me are joined at the hip. And let's not forget that the thing that people want to see with heritage tourism is they want to see the thing that is real. They do not want to see something that is fake, because we got plenty of that around. But they want to see the real deal. So the more real we have, the better.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so jumping into the design alternatives. The site is 22 acres in size, and as you all are aware, it's a very complex site. And in order to get some sort of semblance of organization to the project, we've divided the site into 4 different areas. The North River front on the left, which is looking at the connection from, so 99E kind of snakes up along the left. So the North Riverfront, the next area is what we're calling the South Riverfront, and that is focusing on the public yard as well as the old pipe tunnel, the pipe chase, that's adjacent to the river's edge. Area 3 is looking at the PGE Dam and Mill E, and the last area, Area 4, is considering the potential Kenema connection to the neighborhood.
Probably say that specifically because the way it's written there, it's making it look like that's Kenema, and we all know that that is not Kenema.
It used to say Kenema Connection, and I'm not exactly sure why it has been shortened.
I think it should say Kenema Connection, because it's just not clear there.
I don't understand that.
The connection to Kenema, not that is Kenema.
Oh, I see that.
Yeah, let's pass them out because it's hard for them to see it on the screen.
So we're going to pass out some drawings here, but I'll keep talking. So this graphic up here on the screen illustrates each of the 4 areas and all of the different approaches that we, based on the public input and the stakeholders that we talk to, we together, the design collective, created something like 72 possible combinations of concept alternatives for consideration. And this design baseline is cobbling together the areas that had the highest consensus for each of the different options. And obviously we've got a lot of homework to do. We have identified in orange here the locations that require additional study, further study, where public and private development intersect with each other, adjacent to that design baseline for the Riverwalk. And with the design baseline, we've identified 6 areas or locations that required input from the public. And I'm going to walk you through each one of those locations, but first I wanted to just give you a couple highlights from our November 17th meeting that we had at the Clackamas Community College at the Gregory Forum. We had an estimated 500 people attend the event, and an estimated 150 people participated in a workshop. And how many of you were able, I was at the workshop the whole evening, so I wasn't able to, both of you guys?
I was in Houston.
Okay, well, that's good, so we can walk through these design options.
I was there in spirit.
Yes. Let's see. Also, in addition to the 500 people that participated, 89% of the participants did not attend the March 30th event. We had 800 people at that event. We had 500 people at this one, and 89% did not go to the first one.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow, that surprises me.
So we're reaching out to new people.
We are reaching out to new people, and that was a trend as well with the July event that we had at the festival on Main Street. A lot of the folks that I personally spoke to had not heard of the project before, and it was just really interesting to kind of get to talk with folks that...
Those were the people that were under the rocks.
Yeah. So in addition to the in-person event, we also have a survey online. Over 1,200 people have participated in the survey so far. It's been live from the 17th of November, and we did our first cutoff on December 7th. So we've had about 1,200 people participate in that short couple weeks.
You know, I don't see any coverage on TV about this. Either one of the.
Oh, I saw it on TV.
Did you?
Oh yeah, they had this picture.
We
It was
had
on Channel 6.
What was it about?
Channel 6, and I
About
also saw
10,
it on
10,
Channel...
15 seconds?
No, it was on Channel 6. It was a good 5-minute segment.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Two
okay.
are the most popular channels.
All right.
Yeah. It was
I've
two,
not seen anything
It
about
was
it. on
2
the
and 6 that I saw them both on there because they said Willamette Falls. I was like, what? Okay, I'm not going to change the channel now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It was also on OPB State of Wonder.
Yeah, I heard
Uh-huh.
I heard that report on State of Wonder because they were talking. I thought, why is Randy talking about this?
Yeah.
Randy Gregg.
Yeah.
And one other number from the number of participants in the survey, 32% live in Oregon City with the zip code 97045. 10% live in West Lynn, and the remaining participants live throughout the metro region.
Now you know that's a little bit of a false number though, because Oregon City goes beyond Oregon City, so you can be living in Redland and you'd still have an Oregon City mailing address. That doesn't mean they live in Oregon City though.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the core, and then you've got out there. It'd be interesting to see how many people actually live in Oregon City as opposed to live in the outlying area.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we can ask that
In the
on the
next
next
event,
survey.
yeah. Yeah. Okay.
At the next survey you do, you consider this, because again, I get a lot of people coming into my store, say, where can I learn more about it? You can tell them, but it would be interesting if we had, I know that Laura, or can't remember who gave me some big sheets and people didn't want that, but if we had a little business card that had the.
They did have that.
just
We can
something
give you
small.
some business cards.
Yeah, we can hand out to people, go take a look at this website.
Mhm.
I get a lot of people from
Yeah,
West
that'd be
Lynn
great.
asking if
Handy's-
we were helping them improve theirs, no, we're just working on ours.
Yeah, but if they just go on and put in Willamette Falls Legacy,
They don't remember that once they're
it,
gone.
it comes up.
We can give you some business cards.
Have you given any thought to putting some sort of a advertisement on the side of TriMet?
We are not doing that at this moment, but we have we are contracted to have a trailer run in the movie theaters in December for the opening of the Star Wars movie.
No, it's all the movies.
Oh, is it all the movies?
Yeah, it's
it
gonna
just
run
debuts when Star Wars
Yeah.
opens.
Next weekend.
Yeah.
This coming
Yeah.
The
weekend.
16th is when it opens.
So we have several different theaters, and on the main website we have that general video that you can click on and watch. We've cut that down to a 60-second length of video, and it will run, and it'll say at the end, "Help shape the future" with the website, where we can hopefully generate
Is
more.
that only
Yeah.
gonna run in the Oregon City theater, or is
No.
that all?
No,
over
it's
the
going to
border?
be across
it
the metro
Regal?
region, like Gresham,
So the
Beaverton.
Regal Cinemas?
Yeah, it's 7 of the. I think it's all Regal Cinemas,
Mhm.
and Oregon City Theater's one of them. So if you go to the
Yes.
movies in the next
Over the holidays.
2 weeks,
Yeah.
Yeah,
go a
that's-
little bit early
yeah.
so that you can catch the previews before the previews, and you'll see
You
the ad.
really
Yeah.
won't get a seat.
No, they're all reserved now, Tom. You
One
can't
other
even
thought
go.
I had, I have a lot of people who do the walk around, but a lot of tourists come downtown. That's where I find people from all over the United States. And Germany, I can't even understand them. But have we done anything down there on the fence, so when people are looking at all that,
Yes.
this is
Yes,
something.
have you been down there?
I've not been down there.
You
to
should
see
go
it.
down there, there's information.
There's
There's
a
a sign.
There's a sign up
Yes.
next to the
With
admin
the
building on the
website?
corner. Yep.
Yep.
There's an
Okay.
informative sign. It's just the parking lot that's right there in the corner behind the admin building. It's right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I haven't seen it,
You
but
need-
once
you
I
need
get
to
down.
get out more.
When I get down to my store, I'm there.
You need to get out more because it's down there.
Okay, just thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Yeah.
They're way ahead of you, Tom.
Okay, so before we jump into the design real quick, I wanted to just walk you through a couple different scenarios that help us illustrate the point that the Riverwalk is more than just a sidewalk. This would be a typical scenario where your Riverwalk would run adjacent to your main street and the shoreline of the river.
Like in Astoria.
But in this scenario, we want you to consider a possibility of the Riverwalk jutting in and out of buildings and around and creating different pockets and spaces and making the site more active and dynamic, not just along the river's edge.
That's what I'm talking about.
And then in this scenario, we're looking at the site as the Riverwalk just kind of running in a straight line from point A to point B. But what we want people to really consider is that the Riverwalk, the site is very three-dimensional in nature, and how can we create more of a dynamic experience that gets people down below the ground in these caverns of built-up industry below the platforms, or reach them up high and create a different vantage point of the surrounding area. So just trying to get everybody primed that we're really thinking about this site in a three-dimensional quality and in more of a dynamic nature.
Well, you're going to have to take into consideration the condition of the river right now.
Yeah?
Now, how are you going to get people down close to the river right now? You might lose a few kids or, a mother-in-law or what have you.
Yeah, so there's a couple scenarios here, and this first one that we're going to walk through is looking at explorer trails and how can we get people along the river's edge in a safe way that is maybe more contained and not necessarily free-for-all as far as, it's craggy, there's basalt rocks, there's a sensitive habitat, there's all these different cultural experiences that we want to, when we're creating access, it will be in a way that is respectful to balancing
Well,
that.
during high water, wouldn't those things be washed away?
So remember that modeling that we are doing, the hydraulic modeling, that will be taken into consideration with all of these design options.
It'll be like the floating walkway, Bob. It'll just keep moving up and down with the river.
Yeah.
Like a dock.
Well, my point is, you go down there and you improve the waterfront and sink a couple $100,000 into it to make it look great. And along comes the flood, there goes a couple $100,000, then the water recedes, and what are you gonna do with, you gonna go back in and improve it?
Well, so flooding is a very big issue, and it's one that's not been lost on the design team as we move through these design options. It will be considered in every sort of design gesture or move as we move forward, and yes, it will be considered.
And you might even see us designing pathways that are meant to be, inundated with water every winter, and that they would just be closed off during those times. So there might be parts of the Riverwalk that are totally inaccessible, and they're designed to withstand the flooding.
Oh, that's what I was getting
Yeah.
at.
Park, where the water
Or
always
like
fills
the
in.
East Bank Esplanade, for example.
The East Bank
That's-
Esplanade is a better example.
Yeah.
Clackamas
That's
Park
true.
is not the
Well, it's
same.
always flooding down there.
Well, I'm just thinking about the amount of money you're gonna invest that's gonna be affected by floodwaters.
Yeah.
And, that's money that has to be respent to bring it back up to, if the design were
It was like
accommodating.
project.
Yeah.
Bet it was.
People just burned out on it.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
addition to the Explorer trails, the other area that we asked for public input
big
on
challenge.
in this North Riverfront section of the Riverwalk design is considering water access. Just to give you a little bit of context and where we are, the bulkhead here will be shown in the plans, and I'll show you that as we move into the design, the demonstrated sections. Mill O is in the background, and we've got a cylinder that will be used in a couple of in the options as a potential touchdown point for some of these trails. The reason for a lot of these site industrial, I guess you could call them artifacts or remnants to remain is the design. The design is considering using existing structure instead of ripping out and putting in new. And so that's a lot of the reason why there's certain areas that are retained in these options.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. The less in-water work we
Yeah.
have to do, the
Mhm.
better for the project.
Yeah.
And then it isn't held up because we're waiting for stream flows and
Mm-hmm.
and all of that stuff. And, again, I think, as you've said all along, this is going to be a fairly sustainable project. And so adaptive reuse of things is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm
But
gonna
I was
back.
particularly interested on that one you just showed.
Uh-huh.
And the thing you gave us is that I guess I've never really seen a topo of the river itself. And so where that
Oh, yeah.
drops off, that's quite substantial.
That's the actual bathymetry of the river, and it gets pretty deep and narrow through that section.
That's it's interesting because obviously, even at low water, you wouldn't be able to see anything like that. But I was very curious about
The depth.
where the depth is in that river, channel, because I know when sometimes the little bit larger boats come up, there's only a certain place they can get to, and then they can't really be there anymore. Otherwise, they have problems.
I have a 15-foot boat, and I've tried to get up there and hit rocks coming up from underneath the water.
Oh,
but
I'm
that's
sure you
closer
have.
to the falls. I never realized it was that deep in there.
I had no. Do you know what the depth that is there?
It's about 100 feet.
Wow.
No.
According to your topox, it's 100 feet.
That's deep.
Yeah.
That's a lot deeper than I thought it was. And are there several of these little, what I would call, underwater valleys or canyons that are throughout?
Well, there's a defined river
River
channel
channel.
that goes through the length of that section
Section.
of river, but
Small parts
this is
of it.
the only one that we have section cut
Detailed,
through.
yeah.
That go down to the bridge?
It
The
does
arch
not
bridge?
go the whole way down to the bridge.
The
It
arch
starts
bridge.
a little short.
Okay.
Wow. That's just amazing. Another reason not to play around in the water when you don't know where the bottom is.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
So, as I mentioned, each area that I'm going to show you 3 areas today. Each area has two spots or experiences or locations that we were seeking community input on at the event in November. I'm going to skip to number 2 and talk about water access first, and then we'll move back to number 1, which is called Explorer Trails. In this scenario, we are looking at a proposal for non-motorized watercraft to launch in kind of it looks like a stepped, tiered gathering area spot right here in the white. And that would be like not a boat ramp type of scenario, but just, I'm trying to think of like Hood River Park maybe, where there's these steps that get you down to the river, but it's not a formal kind of boat launch. The next scenario is looking at actually not providing any access, water access at all, but using that as an opportunity to restore the existing habitat along the river's edge. That was the gathering area that we looked at. And then the last option is looking at a potential for a dock. Either this could accommodate non-motorized watercraft, or this could be a potential to accommodate commercial or motorized watercraft. And in the workshops that we had, there was a lot of really great conversation about, do we want commercial access? Yes. Well, maybe not, because there could be a potential conflict with fishing. And so there was a really nice conversation that we were having focused around the boat dock.
As a commercial industry, not industry, but commercial use like the Spirit of Portland or Portland Spirit, have they indicated any interest for?
You're talking about this Portland Spirit?
Yeah.
We are talking with Portland Spirit as well as the Willamette Jet Boat folks. They will actually be at our stakeholder meeting on Wednesday.
So there is an interest there.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask this question, since Bob so aptly raised it.
There she goes again.
If they don't, I guess I see another option for them. If they don't necessarily need to go there, but we have our other dock that's could handle what they have, and that would. So it's not like if they have nowhere to go, they do. I mean, they can come into to John Storm Dock right now, and that to me seems like a better alternative, because then you have a place where people could stage, because you're right there by Clackamas Park. They could be shuttled down to the Legacy Project area and back and forth, and so the one that's there could be much better for non-motorized vehicles.
That's good information, thank you.
Because it's not like we don't have an alternative.
Because the closer you get to those falls, the more treacherous the water really is.
Yeah.
You know, and it's unpredictable in some cases.
It's very interesting if you've been up that in a boat.
Yes.
I've been up in a paddleboard.
I have not done that in a paddleboard, but I've been in a very small boat, and it was
It's interesting.
a little.
far enough where you can't make it anymore.
Exactly.
Did you get attacked by seals?
No.
I know a few kayakers who have.
Yeah, they do. They can.
Okay, now.
We want to make it seal-proof too. That's for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
And the dock would be covered with them.
We are meeting consistently with a lot of the different agencies for habitat, and that's been a topic of conversation that has come up quite a bit. But
Seals.
yeah.
They take over any of those areas
Yeah.
down there that you have just to rest between salmon snacks.
Yeah. Okay, looking at the next area is focusing on the Explorer Trails. And what you see here in white is not in any way indicative of materiality or really shape or form. It's just a gesture as far as what could an Explorer Trail be and what could it look like. So in the event, we had these little tile cards where we were asking the public, okay, help us design this Explorer Trail. What type of materiality would you prefer to see? What type of experience would be important to you? And trying to get more of a sense for what this thing could really look like. Okay. more images.
And I think of the more popular ones, all of the options that show vegetation or anything green seem to be more popular among the people that participated in the workshop at the event.
Are there any further questions on the North Riverfront area before I move to the South Riverfront?
When you're considering the green, and a lot of those people, they were considering handicapped people and wheelchairs on those green ways.
Yeah,
they'll be green
that
too.
topic came up quite a bit, at least in the workshops tables that I facilitated, was just making sure that, because a lot of these images are shown not necessarily meant to be representative of what it actually would be. Like, for example, the trail in the middle here where it has no railings or a slick surface, it's not necessarily meant to actually emulate that exactly.
I was
It's
looking
more,
at the stair stepping.
Oh, yeah,
And
mhm.
moving up, and on your white scale, it looks like there's some different.
yeah.
Have you given any consideration to, since this is going to be a fairly good lengthy walk, places where people could rest and observation decks and people that are disabled or handicapped so they could just pull off and maybe catch their breath or something along those
Well,
lines?
don't forget public restrooms, because I get up
Yeah,
there that
yeah,
time.
yeah.
There's nothing
No,
downtown.
Bob, there will be no rest stops. It's going to be a marathon, and you have so many minutes to finish the
There you
thing.
go. Now you're-
And
Make a game
Now
out of
you're
it.
talking.
It's
Now
like,
you're-
it's gonna be like the Hunger Games.
You're gonna be timed.
Oh, the Oregon Trail. So,
Yeah, well, there you go.
but there will need to be a bathroom if you're the one that gets the card that says
Well,
dysentery.
you've always got the river.
And
One of the other
snacks
things-
either.
And no snacks either. Yeah.
One of the other things that's come up a lot to me asking, and you mentioned something about Portland's east,
East Bank Riverfront Park.
is if they're going to have a nice, quiet, make it a neat place to go, are they going to allow bikes on those trails? And if it's soft material, are those bikes going to tear it up? Or are they going to be taken over by it? Or
So
for
that
people
is-
wanting to walk it in peace?
Yeah, and that's part of the consideration that we're trying to address at this point right now, and so that
Good for those
feedback would be
bikers
really
to see.
great. But I'm just gonna bump back to the plan view and just highlight that even though we're talking about the explorer paths that kind of jut out here in the riverbank area, there would be a promenade along the edge here, which would be more of a substantial width, maybe more similar to a regional trail, for example, where maybe the bikes aren't allowed to
That would be
be
good.
on the explorer trail, so that you can have these different experiences, because they might be a smaller width or.
What about skateboards?
Mhm.
You know, you got a line of
It's a
150.
transportation mode. It's
Yeah,
a
I
mode
know.
of transportation.
Yeah, just tell it to a mother with 3 kids that get run over.
Skateboarding is not a crime.
I'm going to be skateboarding down there on my skateboard.
You,
So,
you can use your hoverboard.
oh, there you go. Hoverboards. I forgot about that. What about our pogo sticks?
No, seriously, the whole idea was coming up. Are they going to be whizzing by? Because I've tried to be down on the Portland one, and sometimes you just feel like you
Yeah.
have to get out of the way
Yeah.
with the bikers, because bikers have priority in Portland now.
No, it's a big consideration.
It'll be great if you
Absolutely.
could connect to the trolley trail in the
I'll
walk.
tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the trolley,
Trolley
trail.
trail. Yeah.
You know, when you
Good
put a
idea.
lot of pedestrians in one spot, it's all about public safety.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because just let one accident happen that could have been prevented, and then you got to, you know, you,
And I just wanted to also point out, I didn't mention this before, but do you see there's a series of little infographics here on the bottom left.
We're so smart we couldn't
They're
read
very
them.
small, so I'm going to walk you through them.
Oh, yeah.
On the
Oh,
left,
those. Okay. I thought you meant the dotted boxes where there isn't anything in it. Okay.
on the left is a series of little raindrops.
Drops.
Those are indicators of how this design option would respond to potential flooding or inundation. And I want to just mention that these infographics are meant to be able to compare each alternative to the other. So the water droplets are indicating flooding resiliency. The HIAD those bars are indicating the different core values. So H for habitat, I for interpretation, A for access, and D for economic development. So, for example, in the option 1, habitat, where we're not providing any access, the green bar for H is really high, but no consideration is being given to access, for example. The next one is looking at the different seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter, and when each particular option might be best suited for a different season, if applicable. The next one, the money sign, is relative cost to each one of the different alternatives. And then the little thumbs up, that one is considering safety and how public safety could potentially be addressed in each option. Okay, moving on to the South Riverfront. This one is looking specifically at the pipe chase, or the old pipe tunnel, and the public yard. And I will talk about the pipe chase first for consideration.
Well, this is the one I sat on.
The pipe chase, we'll show you an existing photo here in a second, but it's approximately 24 feet wide by about 300 feet long in length and about 24 feet tall. And the existing photo that I think, oh, maybe this one didn't have an existing photo. I lied, I'm sorry. But essentially, I guess we didn't put it in there. Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah. Essentially, this pipe tunnel is this big square rectangular box that creates a very strong hardened edge along the river. And looking at different opportunities of, if this is not used for stormwater management in the future, how can we look at it and re-envision it in different ways that might help us create a more contiguous habitat area? How could we look at it for potential pedestrian connectivity, or how can we address potential views from not only inside the site but also views from the river into the site? And in this option, we're looking at deconstructing a portion of the walls on the pipe chase. So not necessarily shortening it by its length, but cutting out or carving out little windows to create a porch-like environment. There would be a covered space from the sun and the rain, which in the community conversations that we had at the event, that was a very strong reasoning for keeping an option like this on the table. This option also allows pedestrian connectivity along the top deck portion of the porch. The next option is looking at deconstructing it to create more of a bridge type scenario. This could help with habitat, where maybe by deconstructing the bottom portion, habitat could be enhanced underneath the pipe chase, but allowing pedestrian connectivity along the river's edge at this point. The next option is looking at a hybrid between those two. Maybe there's a way to create a smaller porch-like situation with a portion of the pipe chase, but then opening up and creating more transparency down to the river's edge.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
And in that one, you see the cutout in the walkway there. One of the reasons behind that is to allow light to pass through to get down to the water, because fish actually won't swim into dark areas because there might be predators there. So if you allow that light to shine through, then the fish will be more willing to go into that space.
Yeah.
Interesting. I was always taught when you're fishing, go for a shadow place, because that's where they sleep or rest.
Kelly, Alex, can I ask you all a question?
Yeah.
Does the pipe
Do-
chase actually extend directly?
You gotta
It's
come
on
up
tape?
because they're taping,
Is it? Okay.
Otherwise, it sounds like
Sorry, just a
from
quick
the
question.
audience.
Does the pipe chase extend to the point directly in front of Mellow, where does it terminate? Is the pipe chase in front of Mellow as well as in front of the yard?
Yes, it starts at the corner of Mill-O. It actually
At the
starts
the
past
north corner.
north of Mill-O, and it's connected in part to Mill-O. Portion of the pipe chase that's along the foundation of Mill-O there, and then it extends farther south down to almost the boiler plant area.
Okay, thanks.
This scenario is an option that is a larger gesture at removing fragmented habitat from the water's edge into the upland area, because it's what we're calling isolation or a fragmented approach. Having a top deck scenario paired with maybe a smaller structure that is separated from the main path of travel, perhaps. This could be an opportunity to get folks into this structure, a covered structure that's not on the main pathway.
So is that two different levels, the portal and then the fragment down there? So I'm thinking of photographers, and they can get a different picture up above than they can down below, or they're trying to create different
Potentially,
things.
it's not been fully baked yet at this point. As far as do we have people up on the roof of that fragmented structure? I think a lot of that is still design consideration that we're looking for.
But normally, the base of the pipe chase is the lower level, and that's the higher level. Is that the way they've kind of pictured
yeah, and
this?
that's in this scenario. This is the upper level of the pipe chase, and the lower level would be what you see under these
So you would have
stilts.
some way for
So,
people to get
yeah.
down to that, like
Mhm.
for wheelchairs
There would
or
be
other
some
people.
sort of alternate pathway.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
How, how wide is that easement? It's 125 feet, isn't it?
120 feet from the river's edge, but we have priority rights in. Yes.
And where is it the most narrow?
It is 120 feet. Oh, basically, if you take the shoreline, it's 120 feet around the.
So we're taking advantage of the entire easement?
Mm-hmm.
Are we?
Yes.
And,
And then some.
It's a preliminary easement,
Yeah.
and so once we have a final Riverwalk design, then we will finalize the easement area, and that could
Renegotiate
change.
that.
You know, it
Good
could get
idea.
narrower in some places and then bigger in
Yeah.
other places.
Good idea.
And the last option, I think this is the last option. Yep. The last option here is looking at just retaining a very small portion of the pipe chase for a covered viewing area, but really opening it up for habitat enhancement and protection in this zone.
And one thing that does also is allows if you're in the public yard area, then you can get better views of the river with that pipe chase removed.
But people would not be allowed to walk in there to trample all the natural wildlife, right?
Right. There would need to be some sort of balance of access versus habitat protection. Because this is fragmented from the pipe chase currently fragments this upland area from the river's edge. As you remove portions of the pipe tunnel, the pipe chase, the more you can create continuous habitat, the higher the value, the habitat value increases.
I was wondering about this too, because I know I sat in with Laura. She was doing the one on this pipe chase, and I was trying to think, what's going to be the final determination? It's not going to be a vote of the people, obviously. I mean, is it the planning commission makes a suggestion based on what we're hearing from the tribes and everybody else, and then it goes to the city commission? Or is there going to be a wider group that make the final decision of what this would look like? Obviously, we can't have the whole public vote on it.
Well, so as Kelly had mentioned earlier this evening, we have a partners group that we are, it's elected officials from each of the 4 partners. So we've got Oregon City, Metro, Clackamas County, and
Right. State?
the state, sorry, excuse me, the state of Oregon. And together, collectively, that's a consensus-based model as far as how decisions will be made. And we will be making recommendations to the partners group for.
So they're making the final decision. We go over this plan, we pass it to the city commission next, and then they go over it, and then they tell that group what we prefer for Oregon City.
Yeah, so the way that the project has been moving currently is before we make a presentation to the partners group, we will be, like Metro Council, for example, They actually had a work session focused around a specific element of the project that they help inform the 2 elected officials that actually sit on the partners group.
Are
Does
they
any,
gonna-
does any
Go
group
ahead.
outweigh the other? I mean, like Oregon City, since it's right here with us, do we have more in the decision? Are we equal with Metro? And sorry, Bob.
It's all based on consensus. And so, we have a lot of staff working on this and a lot of public engagement. So we're really trying to balance all the technical information that we're gathering with our consultants and then all the public engagement, and then direction from the different, partner agencies like Metro Council and Oregon City Commission. And we're trying to find that right balance and kind of bring all those together. And then partners group decision is made by consensus. And a lot of what we hear, I think, is because the partners realize it's in Oregon City. And so a lot of what we hear at those meetings is people saying, I'm going to defer to Oregon City on that one because, if it's about the public's yard, for example, that's, I think, the details are a lot more important to Oregon City than to the state of Oregon,
Right.
for example. So absolutely, we're all kind of thinking in that way.
Yeah, but
I didn't
one-
mean to interrupt, Bob. I'm sorry, Bob.
That's all right. One of the details, though, is how much this thing gonna cost.
That was my
You know,
next thought.
point A, point B, and we go with point B, but that's too expensive. So we, by default, gotta go back to point A, and,
Yeah, and they would.
we just have to change our mind in the middle of the stream.
This one's like.
Wouldn't it be more effective to say, look, folks, here are the problems that we're confronted with, and here's some of the solutions. However, it's gonna cost you $4 or $5 million more with this than it is that. So, I mean, when does that decision?
Well, it's part of this next phase that we're going into right now will be identifying a phasing plan for the entire Riverwalk project.
When you say phasing plan, does that include the cost of what this thing's gonna amount to?
Yeah, so we have an agreed upon budget for the project for phase 1, where we've secured just over $19 million, and $5 million of that, so $25 million total. The $5 million would be future fundraising by our friends group. And so the first phase will be designed to be a $25 million project.
In my judgment, and I could be wrong on this, but in the presentation of this thing, I would lead with that. Folks, this is what it's going to cost you. Because in the final analysis, that's what these elected officials are going to look at. How much money are we spending on this thing? Because that's what the public is concerned with.
Yeah.
What's this thing going to cost us? These are all great concepts and what have you. But the feasibility boils down to what's it going to cost us to put this thing into operation? If you settle on this plan and you don't talk about what it's going to cost you, then all of a sudden the bill comes due. Whoops. And what we don't want in this thing is a whoops. We want to bring this thing along so that everybody by consensus agrees. We're getting our bang for our buck. So I would really lead with that. Folks, this is our problem. We've got a limited resource, and these are the concepts that we've come up with to address this issue. And then there's not going to be any surprises along the way. And they don't want any surprises. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So as you present this thing, keep that in mind.
Okay,
That's
thank
really an
you.
important thing.
But I think that can be
Thank you.
weighed out with the long-term benefits, because you might want to look at an alternative design that's a little bit better. Might cost a little bit more, but you might have long-term benefits of a different design that is
Well, and $1 million is a lot of money.
that's
but
going to
when you're
create
talking 24 million versus 25 million.
Right.
It's like
yeah.
kind of lost.
Now, I understand what you're saying, but I'd want to know this.
No, I think cost is important, but
Yeah.
One more thing I wanted to circle back to our discussion about how decisions are made on the project. So they were talking about how they create a design. So if you were to compare it to building a commercial building, the partners agree on what the project should look like and where the windows should go and what architecture and that kind of thing. And then as the planning commission, your role as one of many regulatory authorities or reviews of this project. So you would make sure it meets our natural resource overlay district geologic hazards, and then, you know, this framework plan that we have. So I just wanted to clarify that the process they were talking about is the creation of the building, and then you as the regulatory authority review our code, not necessarily if it has enough of a core value versus another one or that, but just what does our code say
Right,
for
right.
parking, and do you meet it?
And yeah, and by that token, we don't look at economic impact at all for any of that. Right.
Laura, it may be a naive question or neither here nor there, but if we build like this Riverwalk and we do something with the portal and all this, insurance, is that on the city of Oregon City, safety and all that kinds of insurance, or is that on the state and the county because of the fact that they all had their hands in this, in the building of it, construction of it?
I can answer
We
that.
don't. Oh,
Yeah, we haven't determined who the final owner of the Riverwalk will be yet. Most likely, Oregon City will play a role in that, but we can't say with any certainty at this point that it's going to be one of Oregon City's parks, for example, or one of Metro's
Could be a
parks.
federal or a state park.
Right, it could be
yeah.
could be a combination. So that's kind of part of what we're doing as well in the background while we're doing this design is having those discussions, figuring out who's going to operate and maintain and hold liability for the Riverwalk.
So I was wondering if we had all these partners, who's actually responsible?
Right.
In some capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause there's a cost to that too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And that's a large exercise.
We know one thing for sure, public safety will be Oregon City's responsibility.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's gonna fall right on the police department.
Everyone will sign a waiver of liability to use the Riverwalk. They will not be allowed to go onto the Riverwalk unless they sign the waiver saying we are not liable. A sticker, there you go. I like it.
Let's do the next thing.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. The next area of consideration was the public yard as a potential event or gathering space, and this was the exercise where we kind of played that tile game of what do you want this event space to look like? Do you want it to be flexible? Would you like it to have seating? Is it important that there's art or a play feature? We're just trying to open the door for what do people who come to the future site, how do they want to experience the public yard?
I think the first City Festival should be down
These
there.
are just some more ideas or examples.
You commune with the other downtown things. Exactly.
Does anybody have any further questions on that pipe chase and public yard area? Should I move to the next?
I have one
Yes.
thing to say about the public yard.
Okay.
And I
really needs to
sound like a broken record on this, but
jump up there.
I would like to see that
Yeah.
public yard designed somewhat in a plaza type thing and be dedicated to the public as a peace plaza where people can gather in peace to rest, to eat, to relax, to do whatever, and it be dedicated to the first responders
You don't like that?
of this country. And that can run a whole gamut from the American, the tribes to the literal first responders, policemen, firemen, heck, astronauts if you wanted. But to bring this country together, because this is on the West Coast, and we got an East Coast where this country started out, and bring these people together, just like that. And you can do it somewhat through the design, but you can do it through title, dedication. This area here is dedicated to the people of Oregon, Oregon City, the United States, whatever. Make it appropriate. But it's a peace plaza dedicated to the first responders, and it collectively sort of joins this country together. That's what I'd like to see. So
Okay.
think about it.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
have another question. for
Yes.
you. And all the representations here, I saw it that night that we were looking at this, Laura. Now, I see it white there. Is that just for right now kind of a holding area? Because I was thinking of, I've heard concerts down there, other things that
Nope.
Saturday market, I thought heat, that would really have a lot of heat, would be great.
No, it's
Remember she
purposely
just said a few minutes ago what the white areas were?
rendered white. Yes.
And no, I didn't hear, I was
No,
listening to
it's
you
okay.
too.
No, she said it way early. She
It's
said very early
it's
on.
white to not be suggestive of
Okay.
any type of
I didn't understand
materiality.
that.
Fill in the blank.
Tom, is your microphone
That's
on?
fine.
Tom, is your microphone on?
Yes.
Now it is.
I didn't want you to hear them talking.
We were not talking.
Kidding.
Well, before you go off of this page,
Collaboration.
I kind of really like the option 2 where it says top deck, because it provides a lot of openness and also restores the habitat down there. And the reason that I guess I will have to say honestly, the reason I'm not in favor of the covered one is because I'm thinking about public safety, and I'm thinking about opportunity. I hate to be negative about it, but if you provide a place for somebody to hide in, they will hide in it.
I didn't think about that.
It's just a fact. I mean, it just.
I just think that there's also places, you know, there's going to be a lot. This place, I see this place as kind of a maze of like a lot of different, really different nooks and crannies and stuff like that. And the open spaces would probably be pretty welcome in certain areas, and so I would think that that would be nice to have, you know, a big wide promenade like that.
I've been on a couple of ride-alongs with the Oregon City Police, and there are places where I had no idea that somebody would be hiding in.
They
Yes,
were there.
You got it.
Yeah.
Just unimaginable.
Yeah.
There's lots of opportunities in this city, more than most, for that.
Okay. Next area is looking at the PGE Dam in Mill E. And the clarifier, that big circle in the middle, is one of the areas for consideration, as well as the Falls Overlook, which that rectangle is the Hawley Powerhouse Foundation. And we'll look at examples of how we can treat that. First, I want to dive into the clarifier. But before moving there, I wanted to just, this plan is looking at a potential secondary route to get to the falls viewing. So you see a couple different over water structures here. Those are intended to be, I'll point right here, secondary connectors. So, for example, PGE is doing some maintenance on their dam and they need to close it off for public safety. This could potentially be an alternate route where the public could still get out to the viewpoint to see the falls, and PGE could maintain their maintenance operations. So we wanted to throw that out there as a potential of something that we are considering as we move forward. Here is an existing photo, the clarifier here on the edge of the river. Here's the PGE Dam, and beyond that guardrail is the intake basin, or the lagoon. And here's another shot from the opposite side looking at the clarifier. You can see how it's perched up on a lot of that old basalt. And believe it or not, so we did a rare plant survey a couple years ago when the project went into bankruptcy. And in this location, a lot of rare plants species were actually identified. And this is one of the priority habitat areas for potential restoration.
Adjacent to it or in it?
In the basalt.
In the basalt or in the
In the basalt, not the clarifier. Yeah.
Between the crevices.
Yeah.
What went into bankruptcy?
The site, the mill.
Oh, okay. Because you said before it
I
went into bankruptcy, I was like, what?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. We just didn't understand. We thought something new had gone into bankruptcy. Yeah. Thank you, Bob. I wasn't the only one. The brain was kind of.
Wow, that caught my breath. We haven't even started construction, and we're in
We're already in bankruptcy. No, we're not there yet. The area for design consideration, which had alternatives proposed, is the clarifier, which is that circle in the center. And the first option that was up for consideration and still is up for consideration is removal of the clarifier for habitat creation. Leaving a remnant wall to be a nod to its industrial character, but really taking out that structure in entirety and preserving it for habitat. The next option looks at keeping the clarifier intact and actually retrofitting it so that we could create something like a theater in the round where this could be a smaller event gathering space. The next option is looking at building up maybe an elevated deck on top of the clarifier. And in this option, looking at ways to create a temporal attraction. So for example, a hot air balloon is a non-permanent solution to create views that could take you up and look at the watershed and the context of the site in relationship to West Lynn and the river. But this is just one idea of how that attraction could be created.
Would that be tethered?
Mm-hmm, yeah. The next option is looking at keeping the clarifier intact again, but actually filling it with soil to create a planter.
Botanical garden of sorts of the wild plants.
For habitat. Mm-hmm. But by keeping the clarifier intact, there's an opportunity to maybe create a walkway that goes around the perimeter of it as a potential, that secondary connection that I had mentioned. In the next option, it's similar, but creating more of an earthen landform, which is an opportunity, again, for habitat, but maybe on the side that's facing the river, being able to elevate you a little bit higher, and this is maybe a nice relaxing spot where you could lay in the grass and get a different perspective of the river.
That looks like it'd be cheaper.
Than like a
They'd
theater
tear
in the
it
round,
apart
for
and do all
example.
the other stuff.
Yeah. And
We
the
got it.
area that we are looking at for consideration of materiality and experience is the Holly Powerhouse Foundation. What does that overlook of the falls? How does that feel? How does that look? Do you want to see concrete or something more like wood or stone? Should it be covered? Should it be a space for solidarity, or should it be a space where groups can gather? So those are a lot of the questions that we were asking people at the workshops to help us with.
Looks like Norway.
Are there any questions on the South River or the PG Dam and Mill E area?
You're pretty solid on the area for a large crowd to gather, though, aren't you?
At the public yard?
Yeah.
That's one area. The second area for consideration is a smaller group at the clarifier, for example, but those were the two areas that were identified for gathering or event space.
Yeah.
Here we are at the schedule, the project calendar. In the blue dot in the center, that marked our event that we had in November. So anything behind the blue dot is events or meetings or conversations that we've had in the past. So as Kelly had mentioned, we had the March event, we had the July event, then we had this November event. So those have been the large community engagement milestones. But in addition to that, we're having these separate communications for the next couple of months with different local groups. I'm meeting with the Clackamas County Watershed Council tomorrow or Thursday evening. So we've got a lot of those already scheduled. And if you know of other groups that might be interested, let us know, and we'll try to get on their agendas for upcoming winter meetings. But so here we are in the fall. We just had our event. We are looking at having a fourth community event where we will showcase and kind of celebrate the preferred plan in March. And then looking ahead to schematic design phase 1 in the spring. So as we had mentioned earlier, we're on schedule to submit a land use application or a detailed development plan for the phase 1 in June. And depending on how that goes, as well as state and federal permitting, we are looking at a potential first phase construction to begin in mid-2018.
I may be alive.
Oh, I didn't know if that was a good.
I hope you're planning on being alive. Good grief.
So I want to point out that winter 17 comes before spring 17.
Oh, good one.
March is still winter, technically, I guess, is what we were thinking there.
Okay.
Have you
Good
counted
point.
the-
Spring is June.
Have you counted the?
No, June is
the
starting to
number
go
of
into
permits
summer.
you need?
What's that?
Have you counted the number of permits that you need?
We are in the process of creating that big matrix of how many different permits that we'll need, but we are in conversations with the National Marine and Fisheries, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers. We'll need to submit a land use application with the city and
Is the Coast Guard involved?
at this point, we've got the Marine Board on a stakeholder committee, but we are not. It's not been determined yet whether or
Because
not it will
they're in
trigger.
charge of navigable streams.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if they would have a voice in this or not.
I think it depends if we are going a route of, like, for example, a boat dock on the project site.
Okay.
So I think that's all we have for you this evening. Do you have other comments that you want to share with us?
Heck of a job.
Yeah.
Well, talk about outlandish things that you have, with that balloon and whatnot. I was just looking at the other day in Prague, they had this Zeppelin, and it was a reading room. And it was like kind of slanted and up in the air, and you could go in it, and had these seats in it, and it had slats so that the sun could filter through, and then it was covered in glass. And you looked inside of it, and the sun would filter through, and it was really a unique space.
Mhm.
I was really
The branding
I want to
opportunity
go to
for
Prague.
Prague.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Not
Jim
that
wants
we
to-
would be able to do anything here like that, but I think that
Jim?
sometimes.
Yes, but you have to be on the record. Even though we're not making a record, we're making an informal record. More.
James DeCita, I live in Oregon City. So since we're going to see you guys at the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association, maybe Thursday,
Hopefully
maybe not,
Thursday.
depending on the
On
weather.
Yes, weather permitting.
I just wanted to throw out a question. Maybe you can research before Thursday. Tonight, I heard again something I've been hearing since the beginning of the project, which is that the Oregon City Flowering Mills Foundation is underneath paper machine number 3. And when I was doing my research, I was coming across information that it's below paper machine number 2. And actually, paper machine number 2 was converted, the flour mill itself, into number 2 paper machine. And if you compare the 1900 Sanborn map to the 1911 Sanborn map, 1900 has it as Mill 2 as part of the Portland Flowering Mills. And 1911 has it as Mill D, which was
Number 2.
the paper machine. I don't know, if you all have, information that's different from what I have determined just by looking at those
The
two
Sanborn
sequential
maps,
Sanborn maps. I'd be really interested in,
Yeah.
in learning that, because that's really interesting
Yeah.
to me. I'm a defender of paper machine number 3, so that might make it easier to whack paper machine number 3. But I mean, factually, I do think that the foundation
Yeah.
is the foundation of
Right.
number 2.
Yeah, and I think number 2 and number 3 are right next to each other, so I think it may be more under number 2 than number 3. And we have all the Sanborn maps and all the historical maps and photographs that can be found were found by Lori Matthews of MIG, who's doing the cultural landscape study. So we do have that information, and we'll be able to look at that as well. So yeah, but I think that the question is also what are the trade-offs of, if we do want to expose that foundation, then what do we need to remove, and do we want to go ahead and remove that or not? So we're looking forward to having that conversation too.
Yeah, and that leads into the next question is, at some point, that south riverfront. I'm sorry, the
the North Riverfront.
The North Riverfront, where these. I mean, there you go.
Okay. I'm going too fast there.
Yeah. So to the left of where it says Pipe Chase, that triangle, I think that's
Right
the busiest and most conflictual part of the entire site, because of what you have as far as natural setting and what you have as going on as historic resources, and just the complexity of it. That to me is the one where this is going to need the most drilling down on trying to resolve the conflicts between the core value. I mean, more than anywhere else on the site. And I wonder, as part of that, would it be an idea to have design charrettes? Because I've been thinking about how to resolve those conflicts for a while now, but I can't draw worth a hill of beans. So if there were some way to have the design charrette process where you have an urban designer or a graphic designer who can translate what's in people's heads onto paper, that to me would be a really useful exercise for the project to work on resolving the conflicts in that site to everybody's satisfaction, because I think it can be done.
John, can I ask,
sure.
What are the conflicts? I'm not aware of what you're talking about.
All right. Well, I'll show you if you want to look at that. First of all, do you see where the circular, what do you call that thing?
Just a cylinder.
The cylinder. Okay. Now, the outline, the square outline just above that.
This here?
Yeah. That outline is number 3 paper machine. Number 3 paper machine is eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. And this graphic shows that number 3 paper machine removed for the purposes of, for example, exposing that tail race and adding to more enhancements on the natural part of the 4 key values. One of the issues that is with that is that's shown as as a flowing stream, but that tail race was never an actual stream. It was the discharge of a flume that powered the flouring mill there, which is just it's kind of that diagonal walkway is kind of bisecting, a little higher.
Here.
Yeah, and going towards 3rd. That is number 2 paper machine right there, the foundation. And I think what's being shown there is at the tip of the triangle is where the historic foundation of the flouring mill is. And I think what's the intent there is to show the historic foundation being exposed for public view as part of the Riverwalk, which, I mean, I'm all for that. That's a great thing. Because of, and then you have the public access there with that kind of interesting, web of pathways going there. So you have the historic, the public access, and the habitat all converging on one in that one site in a very crowded and conflicting way. And that's why I think that's the area of the whole Blue Heron site, the whole Riverwalk, that I think requires the most tender treatment. And like I said, there's ways to resolve all the conflicts to everybody's satisfaction. It's going to take a lot of TLC.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't want to do away with the whole tail race, because that's kind of even though historically it might be
It might
I would love, I would,
Yeah.
I would love to see, you know, that wooden barrel flume invoked somehow
Oh.
to deliver water from the basin again.
I've seen.
And-
I saw a couple of your posts on
Yeah,
that. That was pretty
and
cool.
discharged, you know, right, that was the tail race for that barrel flume,
Mhm.
right there. To restore that would be really cool.
Mhm.
Walker Macy found a flywheel in the foundation of number 2 paper machine, and just maybe even if decoratively having you know that thing turn
those
its
pieces.
yeah,
Mhm.
and that exposed would
Even
be cool
just,
too.
Yeah, in an interpretive
Yeah.
thing or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But doing number 3 paper machine where you can, you know, save the form somehow, even if it's just a sculpture or a pavilion roof
Mhm.
in the form of the original number 3
Well,
paper
even just
machine.
preserving it as the ruin, wouldn't that be good? I would think that the ruin.
Well, the original roof's not there anymore.
Right, I mean, but just as the ruin, you know, just having the walls,
Yeah.
the foundation.
Well, that's what
walls
he's
there.
talking about, keeping a
Yeah.
portion of the
Yeah.
structure.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and
Sorry.
you know, opening it up so you can see everything below.
Mhm. Yeah,
Because
that'd be
everything
good.
below is cool, too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, thank you.
I know there's been a lot of tours down there all last year and
Yeah,
prior.
they're still going on.
Is there any time that we as a planning commission can go down there and, as a group?
We did go as a group.
When did was that when I was
I
having
don't know.
surgery?
I've gone twice with the planning commission down there.
I have not been down there.
It's been a long time.
We can absolutely schedule something
Sometime on the snow
in the
nights.
spring.
Been down there, done
I
that.
would like to go with groups because we have some other questions or thoughts. I'd like to hear from them.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you for
No, thank
No,
you.
that's
It was
good.
great going through all that with
I
us.
won't feel so bad about having to miss part of the meeting tomorrow now because I'm gonna be at the alternative mobility thing.
Thanks for your comments.
Yeah, thank
Yes.
you. We'll be back with
Yes,
more
please come
information.
back.
Thanks for bearing with us.
Yeah.
This is the fun stuff.
All right, I have a couple communications for you if you're ready.
All right, we're ready. Are you ready?
All right, so as they had mentioned previously, there's the city commission work session tomorrow. We'll have the design team there, but also I just wanted to give you an FYI that we'll also be talking about membrane structures at that meeting as well. And we'll be looking
Where
for
is it on the agenda?
last.
Last?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be looking for input from the city commission as to if we should start to investigate changing our code, not changing our code,
Mm-hmm.
bring the decision back to the planning commission for further direction
On
or
membrane
recommendations
structures.
on membrane structures and potentially setbacks or other associated items as well. I have good news to report. We received a $100,000 grant from Metro for equitable housing. As you remember, we applied for this grant almost a year ago or close to, and we couldn't be more excited to find this money and have these partners to work together as a community to have a conversation about equitable housing. So how could we find housing opportunities for all people within the city? So it may be housing at different price points, it may be different housing
Maybe, but at least
opportunities,
it's being talked
it may
about.
be housing close to transit or housing for people who can't get upstairs or something like that. So we're very excited to have this conversation. We'll be starting to narrow down our scope of work with Metro over the next few months, and then we'll put together finalize our plan, and we'll do community advisory boards and that sort of thing. So more to come over the next year and slightly more than that. The outcome of this project would likely be some amendments to our code. So that would come before Planning Commission and ultimately City Commission in a legislative process. So I'll keep you posted on that. Next is we had a Friends of Trees planting event a couple of weekends ago, and we are so happy to have such great neighborhood associations and neighbors in McLaughlin, Berkeley Hills, and Rivercrest neighborhood associations. The city is proud to work with Friends of Trees for the second or third year in a row. I think it's third.
Second year?
Second year, thank you.
In a row.
In a row.
But the third time, though.
Yeah.
Yes, and we planted nearly 100 trees. And it was a really great community event. There was a lot of people that came out. Commissioner Espy was there, but it was a lot of new faces that I hadn't really seen before. And we got put on planting groups and planted trees for our neighbors. Most of the trees were within our planting strip or in the right of way. And after all the work was done, the neighborhoods hosted us in a potluck where they cooked for us, and it was a really nice thing. It was really nice for all of the volunteers. The food was good, so that was good too. But it was nice to sort of bring it back to that really community level to support our neighbors, and a thank you for helping to plant the trees. The thing that we really like about working with Friends of Trees is their interest in making sure that the tree has this long-standing life, and that there's education components, and they don't just plant it and leave. They come back a couple years later and check on it and prune it and help you maintain that health of that species. And it's not just thank you for your tree, I'll see you later. And it was nice to go on the tree planting cruise and see just down the block there was the sign of the Friends of Tree Planting from last year. So a big thank you to everyone in the city, and specifically the neighborhood associations for helping that. They were so gracious.
Yeah, they did a nice job.
Were there enough volunteers from each of the neighborhood areas?
Yeah, as far as planting, the spread of the planting locations, there was a lot of people. We had on the crew that I was on, we had more volunteers than we probably actually needed, which was good because some of those buckets of water got kind of heavy.
Our group planted the most trees.
Some of them had 11 trees or so, which
we planted 11.
11.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
11 trees?
Planted 11 trees that morning.
And that was the most?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, the ones with the root balls, the burlapped ones. Holy cow. Those things were
Heavy.
really heavy.
Yeah.
The ones that were in the pots weren't as bad, but the burlap ones had because I guess they had to have the clay type soil congealed around the roots so that it would stay there, and it was really heavy.
Yeah, when I did it last year, we had
And the
container
buckets,
container
yeah.
trees.
And we had those too, but there was a couple of clay ones.
Were
that
you
were
in
like,
Barkley?
"Ooh."
Were you in Barkley Hills or Rivercrest?
No, we were in McLaughlin.
Okay.
You put protections around
They
the
got one
base
well.
of the trees because those Oregon State beavers are always gnawing.
Yeah,
We have
I
those
know.
trees.
I know. I tried to withhold the temptation, but it was tough.
And then also one more update is that we did receive the dissent from Land Use Board of Appeals on the Beaver Creek Road concept plan readoption, and they reaffirmed the city's decision approving the readoption of the
Nice.
concept plan.
Oh, so they didn't give us anything to remand or do or anything.
There's no
They
remand.
just said, "There it is, take it."
Mm-hmm.
Great.
There was 3 cases. Is that just that one?
Yeah, so the first one was associated with Willamette Falls Hospital, and there was the LUBA decision on that did support the city commission's approval of that. And then this is the second one. So the third one that we'll be looking forward to a decision on is associated with the comprehensive plan amendment and zone change at Beaver Creek in 213.
Right.
And that should come
We
soon.
did a zone change down by Home Depot last year regarding discount tires.
No, it wasn't a zone
Oh,
change.
the code interpretation.
No.
It wasn't?
No, it wasn't a
As an
zone
inter-
change.
Well,
No.
what's the status of that anyway?
They're working, actually. I think they received an
It was a
extension
code
to their planning
interpretation
approval.
about
Oh,
a tire
but they are gonna
store. Did it
proceed.
fit within the?
Yeah, there's nothing for a while and they're
I've
back.
got our little summary here because that's what we gave
Oh,
it our report.
anything going into the Hagen store by any chance?
I've not heard a thing. I've not
Okay.
heard a thing about Hagen's or Walmart. We have received random phone calls here and there about repaving a
Okay.
parking lot at Hagen's, but
Yeah,
there was
and-
no
And then what's being built
CS.
over by Safeway?
building. I think it has
building?
3 tenant spaces.
Yeah.
It's right in front of
It's Craig Danielson
the
Theater.
theater. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. So yeah, it is a multi-tenanted building. It was in the master plan, so they just did a detailed development plan at a type 2
To
level.
everybody.
And how's the Cove
Cool.
proceeding?
Okay.
Working,
She said
a lot of
she's
work to
gonna
do.
send it. I
Yeah.
asked her.
Boy,
Yeah,
a
so
lot
they,
more than they thought, wasn't it?
We had the food
yeah,
truck
they're just
one
working
in
on that
June.
grading, so there's not been any issuance of building permits or anything like that, but breaking up all
See,
that
when did we
concrete
do
and
that?
finding all that concrete too, and working that out.
Do you see any perceived direction of the membrane structure issue?
I I don't know.
Okay.
I'll find out more. I can
Probably a good
report
answer.
back if you'd like me to.
No, no.
I would, because I guess part of my concern about the people that came and were concerned was that many of those structures that people put up did not follow building code, which, you know, we can't wipe that away with a code amendment. I mean, if it was built too close to the property line and it doesn't have the proper setbacks, those sort of things, to me, that's a problem without
They
code.
can't be deemed non-conforming if
No.
they haven't gotten a building permit in the first place for them.
Yeah.
So I learned that that is true, but they do have the legal authority to bless them, even though they were not built in compliance with code.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I think that opens up the city to liability.
Yeah,
It is,
because
the political thing. If you want to do it, is
Yeah.
a whole nother
Yeah.
is a whole nother
particularly
question.
because of an adjacent property owner.
I support the city's notion towards property rights, but I think property rights
Doesn't
needs to
trump
be
safety.
broadened to also look at people's rights to sustain their property values and the built environment as well as the environmental environment.
Well,
So-
property rights does not include violating the zoning ordinance.
No, it doesn't.
Right.
But
Now,
some
most
of
of
those
the
people
most
have those homes, or those
most of
membranes.
those were people built those things to put these giant motor homes in. I mean, not
Yeah.
giant, but these motor homes. That's primarily what they
Boats.
were. Because I know most of the other ones, people just had them as sheds or God knows whatever else. And I will have to tell you that honestly, McLaughlin looks 100 times better now that a lot of those are gone.
Yeah.
And you know, again, I've complained bitterly to stores that sell them, saying you need to put up a disclaimer saying you need to check with your jurisdiction to make sure you can actually have one of these, because they even advertise them on TV. Oh, put your still building on your property. I'm going, you know, no, can't do that.
And then just a couple of items for planning commission moving forward. Our next hearing is canceled, which is December 26th.
It's still on the. You know, it's interesting when I went on the city calendar. This meeting is not on the calendar, but the one on the 26th is on the calendar on the
Look at
website.
that. The agendas have been updated.
Yeah,
I'll
they
make
have a calendar of city things, and
Oh,
I
the
kept
city
looking for the
calendar,
12th, and I said, well, I guess we're not meeting tonight because it's not on the calendar.
All right, and then we'll meet again on January 9th. So at the January 9th, it should be Chair Kidwell's last meeting, so we'll probably say a few words.
Did we say more than a few words?
You can say as many words as you would like. And then we also have a busy agenda that meeting as well. So we'll be having the first hearing for 2 annexations. One is the Oregon City Golf Course, and then the other one is the property that we talked about earlier this evening, which is the Sears annexation.
Yeah. Should we meet earlier to have Chair Kidwell's send off and then maybe start into the agenda? at
Would you wanna
7,
meet
like
at
we
6:30?
6:30? Would that be possible?
I don't think the food budget can handle it.
I was gonna ask,
It's possible. I can make it happen if you're available at 6:30.
are we still on tape?
I could get there.
You're still on
Yeah.
tape.
That he's gonna watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
He
can.
doesn't watch the meetings.
I will
Yeah,
circle back with Chair Kidwell and see if
Okay.
he's available on the.
Poll of commissioners, is that,
6:30?
does that,
Well,
Yeah,
there's something
that-
else
that
that
should work.
Laura
does
and I
that work?
Yeah,
Because
discussed.
I would rather do that than
Yeah.
stay a half an hour later.
I can.
Well, it's
I
gonna
can
be a
meet
midnight
earlier.
one anyway, probably with all those.
Well, I mean,
And-
so be it, but I mean, at least we have a running start.
Yeah.
So we have those 2 annexations coming up in January 9th, and then so I was tentatively have scheduled for sometime in February, whether it's the 1st or the 2nd, the legal briefing. And then another round of interviews for the planning commissioner.
It's from Brian Shaw.
6:30 meeting in the back room, since we don't wanna have all the public if you
I
do.
said
the food.
yes.
Yeah, I think they should.
Yeah, I do too.
I'll get back to you on it.
Yeah, I don't think that should be circumvented.
That's all I have, and then as you had mentioned, there's the alternate
We're gonna change the
mobility
code, that's
study
what we
is
do.
moving forward, and the first meeting is this week. So here we go.
That's Thursday, right?
Thursday for the community advisory group from 6 to 8, I believe.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Now, Zach raised a good question, a good point. Weather permitting, you'll let us know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I just got a text from Brian Shaw about membrane structures. Because I was turning my phone back on so I could put that in the calendar.
Is he watching or something?
No, he just asked, his question was, did I think membrane structure should
He's the eye.
be referred to the planning commission, and I said yes.
Yeah,
I wrote a memo into the agenda, and it has a section on if the matter should be referred back or not.
That's a really interesting piece
One of my
about
favorite
that. How they can wave their wand and allow them even though they haven't had permits.
I was surprised. I've never
Yeah.
heard that before.
That's really interesting to me.
So I had on my agenda the thing about, I said, ask Laura about League of Oregon Cities Conference or APA Planning Commissioner training. So that was just,
I did sign up for a magazine from APA for planning commissioners today.
yeah, I've seen it in the past.
Yeah.
How are you going to promote for getting more candidates on the commission? Is that going to be published somewhere?
We're going to put a list of criteria that, they have to have hair. They need to be older or younger.
Oh dear.
Did you
she's-
miss all of that?
Just-
Bob had it all down.
Just kidding. Just
They have
kidding.
to fog up a mirror.
We'll put our heads together if you have any creative
And
ideas.
we can do some sleuthing ourselves.
Yeah. Yes, any champions to get the word out is greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Sometimes that person-to-person contact, like,
Yes.
hey, you need to join the planning commission. We want you to do it.
Are you going to submit, what I was wondering, are you going
People-
to submit a mini press release to the Oregon City News, so something like that to reach out and say,
Yeah, they did that last time too.
and we still didn't get,
I'll circle back with our city recorders. I
Yeah.
think there
Something
might be
like,
in the round.
do you like to read? Do you like to read interesting and challenging documents? Then the planning commission is for you.
would you like to fall asleep at night by
Come
reading?
on down and apply.
Do you like torture?
Put
There
a
are-
snippet of our staff
Do you like
report
falling
findings.
asleep at night grinding your teeth?
There are 6 gregarious people who would like you to join them. I mean, really, ham it up.
There she goes, gregarious. Now I got to look that up. Jeez.
All right, thank you very much.
Is there any other items to come before the commission for tonight?
No.
So before we close, I would just like to say I'm sure I will see some of you before the end of the year, but if I don't, we want to wish everybody who's watching at home tonight a very Merry Christmas. And staff, thank you for everything. Of course, we will hopefully see you before the end of the year. And thank you again, Alex, and thank you, Kelly. And guys, thanks a lot.
Bah humbug.
Roll the credits.
All right, roll the credits. Okay.